You've founded, expanded, created a range of different entities, agencies, from Lander, Edelman, and now ISC. You're synonymous, right, with that line that will go down in history and forever, Malaysia Truly Asia.
25 years old this year. We had won something like, I don't know, 27, 28 different awards.
There you go.
Okay? It's kind of sad that after 25 years, anyone is still trying to claim falsely that they came up with it.
How do you feel about others taking credit for work in the marketplace? Potentially a bit of a controversial question. When you took on the political constabulary, when it came to Malaysia tourism.
That's when I decided enough is enough. Called the press conference. Let's go. And it went public.
Very public. To the point that you were on every paper,
Yes.
every radio station.
Yeah.
Would you do it differently?
I think I'd do it again.
Okay.
Ooh, a good idea.
All right, guys. Welcome to another session of Marketing Mavericks. I'm Peter Kretser, founder and CEO of Go Communications, and we've got an incredibly special guest with us here today. None other than great family long-term friend, first of all, but also global advertising guru. It's the one and only Mr. Austen Zecha. Austen, welcome, and lovely to have you.
Thank you very much.
Austin, I say, and I put in my notes here, but you're like Benjamin Button. Every time I see you, you seem to get younger and younger and younger. Can you explain and just give our viewers a hot tip on how to stay so youthful?
I guess the only way to explain it is having come from Indonesia. I take what's known as that jamu, that keeps you a bit young. No, I don't. I'm lucky.
Right, it's in the genes. You're synonymous, right, with Tourism Malaysia and that line that will go down in history and forever, Malaysia Truly Asia.
25 years old this year.
Is that right?
Yes.
There you are. There should be a party somewhere.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to the boardroom, bar top, park, wherever you were, in terms of how that came to be, and just tell us how that sort of manifested itself?
Yes. As one of your creative staff, Pauling can testify to, his mother was there.
There you go, mate. Good mention.
And what happened was, it was a Monday morning. I may be older, but I haven't quite crossed the line of senility. At that time, our chairman was, of IC, was Mukesh Mahathir, who co-founded the agency with me, in fact. And he said, hey, guess what? He said, we've got 3 weeks, 3 Fridays. I said, that's less than 3 weeks. That's 2 weeks minus 3 days. He said, yeah. He said, we can go after the Tourism Malaysia account. And I said, what? What happened? He said, well, the new minister called me this morning and said that since you did one for them called something Malaysia Truly, I know it was called, to know Malaysia is to know Malaysia is to love Malaysia. Something like, to know Malaysia is to love Malaysia, something like that. Okay, it's a song. It was a great song.
Sure.
And it went very well. Okay, from the mid '80s until it was. When was it when he called me? It was, what year was that? It was in the year of 1999, okay? And when Mukesh said to me that morning, we've got 3 Fridays to go after this account again. And I said, okay, what's the brief? No brief. I said, what happened? He said, well, the minister has got his 3 agencies and this panel of agencies to pitch and rebrand the country, and he doesn't like anything he saw. I said, well, we're supposed to do this on a totally speculative basis. He says, correct. He said, if you're any good, you can do it. Okay, if I was any good, I could walk on water too, but I don't think I can. But we've got less than 3 weeks. Make a long story short, the last week before we were supposed to present to the minister, who was then Dato Kadir, now Tan Sri Kadir, we didn't crack the nut yet, as they say. After many nights of eating burgers and pizzas and whatever, we said, well, some guys came up with the line, colors of Malaysia, some guys came with tastes of Malaysia, whatever. Well, I tried to editorialize, and I said, guys, we know what it is. It's all the civilizations of what made Southeast Asia, whether it be Muslim, whether it be Hindu, whether it be Buddhist. I said, you know, and if we go to a barbecue, a Malaysian barbecue, what do we get? We get a Chinese stall, we got a Malay stall, we got an Indian stall. Yes, we know all that, you know. But what is then how do we editorialize that into one thematic brand line? And that's when that night, all of us, and I shall not say everyone receives equal credit. There were 5 people in that room.
Sure.
Each one of us agreed that the best way of describing Malaysia is to say that since it was a polyglot, the convergence of the great civilization of Southeast Asia, we should just say Malaysia is truly Asia. And that's what happened. And so when we presented it in the conference room of the Tourism Malaysia offices when it was still at PWTC, never happened before. The client, the minister, got up from his chair at the end of the presentation, and Datin Yasmin American, brand guru, was there. Mukris was there. Okay, can testify to it. He just got up to the front of the stage, front of the room, got up on the stage and said, now I know I don't have to look at any other agency, you've got it. Just do it. And that's exactly what happened.
And that was your winner?
That was the winner, yeah.
Right, and the creative from the tagline followed from there. Was
Yes.
that?
Well, it took us another, I think, 7-8 months to unroll it. It was in June 1999 when we presented it, and it was in October of that year that the first ad came out, and I think we had a whole series of ads, one on culture, one on cuisine, one on the beach, you know, things like that.
Sure, sure.
So it took about, 7-8 months, I guess, into the better part of 1999, 2000, and the year 2000. Sometime in June and July, everything had rolled out by that time.
And not to pacify you, I mean, I think anyone out there would understand that, you know, the true success of any campaign is its longevity.
Yeah.
And for the fact that this stayed around, I mean, you look at tourism strap lines, campaigns today, they last, you're lucky if it lasts a year, 6 months, and that type of thing.
Right. Well, the good thing about it is people who know about it can testify. I was called up by the authorities 4 different times. Because I shall not mention the 4 other neighbors who wrote letters to the heads of government here complaining about the audacity of Malaysia to say that they were more Asian, which it's not the case.
Sure.
It just says truly Asia. We never said we're more Asian. But each one of them basically was a little bit miffed and complained to our highest authority. And I was called up 4 different times and had to endure the questioning as to what the heck to do. And I finally had to say to one of the very, very senior ministers that, sir, it goes to prove that this works. Because if it doesn't work, if it wasn't working, they wouldn't possibly write you a letter complaining. They write you these letters of complaint because it's biting them.
Right.
And one particular neighbor went through 3 different changes in the next 5 years of the thematic line. And 2 of them changed once each, and one was very unfortunate. I shall not name the agency, but I shall name the country because it is humorous. And it's very sad.
So we could probably quickly research this and find out. Anyway,
Well,
go
yeah.
on.
And so, well, this country said, a breath of fresh air, something to that effect.
Right.
Well, 3 months later, they were the worst hit with SARS. So the breath of fresh air had to go out the window.
Sure.
And the poor agency that came up with that line had to, unfortunately, it wasn't their fault, but they were dismissed. So it's sad.
You know, Austen, with any great campaigns over the years, and I, arguably also saw this with Dad and growing up in the business myself. There's a lot of people that kind of want to take credit.
Yeah.
And, even in recent times, and this might be a bit of a tough question for you, there might have been some conjecture as to, who came up with it, who actually developed the line. I mean, leaving that aside, and I'm with you.
Right.
What do you I want to ask you, take you away from that, because obviously, believe you guys obviously created this, but how do you feel about others taking credit for work in the marketplace, generally speaking? And could you argue it's happening more and more as sort of time goes on?
Yeah, as the saying goes, failure has no father, but success has many fathers.
It's a good line.
So, what can I tell you? I mean, the fact that they're trying to do that is flattering to us. Imitation is the best form of flattery too. But it's kind of sad that after 25 years, anyone is still trying to claim falsely that they came up with it, okay? There are still 4 or 5 people very much alive. One is Tan Sri Kadir, one is Dr. Mahathir, one is Dato' Najib, one is Julie Lingen, who was the executive creative director in our agency. One is our, at that time, general manager, a lady by the name of Chu Ping. Another one is the gentleman you have here, I think, the creative, Paul Lingen, who was there. And there's Mukesh Mahathir, who was our chairman. They're still alive, okay? So they can all bear witness.
You got some pretty solid testimonials there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank God they're still alive. and I wish them all a long life, because God knows how much longer people are going to be claiming that they did it.
But are you seeing more and more people sort of plagiarize and copy and take work just in terms of what you're doing from an ad standpoint? And I mean, I know that there's, massive talk in the industry these days, even with us, when we're sort of pitching and putting ideas together, proposals, where clients are simply sort of taking it in. They might appoint someone else that's a little bit cheaper, twisting the concept a little bit. At the end of the day, look, we know the 4As have a pitch fee and a policy, but is there any way to stop this from happening, or are we just sort of resigned to the fact that...
unfortunately, we also live, or fortunately, in an area, not only Malaysia, but in Southeast Asia and ASEAN, that is less suit prone than those in the West. People in the West sue for just anything, and about everything. And maybe that's the only way to curb this, okay? But we don't, okay?
Sure.
But it is still happening. We just had one case in the last year, 18 months. Ideas were taken, ideas were used, but it was with a less expensive cost, of course, all right? Been there, done that, right?
And it certainly hurts.
Okay, I mean, it doesn't say much to the people who do that. I mean, they have no morality, and no sense of ethics, conscience.
But they get away with it, Austen.
They get away because, because
that's the problem, right?
We're too nice as an industry. We don't sue.
Technically, what can you do? I mean, you want to be caught in the court system for 200 years, paying lawyers, get nowhere.
Exactly.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Especially
Great.
when
Yeah.
people like you, I know, and us pride ourselves on our creative
I know.
aspect of the business, right?
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's also, to some extent, the fault of our association, that we all pay our dues to. We're supposed to protect our interests, and they don't necessarily. And so, the forays of the UK, Australia, the US are a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more ethical, a little bit more feisty on behalf of their
Are we saying
members.
are we saying locally there's a bit more work to do? Do you think?
Yeah,
In that
oh, yeah,
area,
much
from
more.
an
Much more.
association standpoint.
Much more.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't think I'll see it in the next, in the foreseeable future. Let's put it that way.
We haven't seen it for the last 50 years as well.
Yeah, exactly. I've been here now in this industry for, gosh, interestingly, by November 14 this year, 2024, I will have been in Malaysia in this industry exactly 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want an invite to that party.
Yeah. Okay, that's when I came back to Malaysia.
Amazing.
Yeah. Prior to that, I was in journalism. And prior to that, I was a speechwriter in the States and all that. Yeah.
Sure, sure.
So, yeah.
Coming back to Malaysia Truly Asia, and potentially a bit of a controversial question. I've known you a long time.
Yep.
And I think we were just talking before we started this that, together
your
with
dad,
my father,
yeah.
the commonality is that you guys, balls of steel, brave as all hell, going out there, selling your socks off. I want to take you back to when you took on the political constabulary, when it came to Malaysia tourism. Now,
Yeah.
what was your thinking at the time? And would you do it differently, or were you standing up for a particular cause? What's your take on that after everything sort of has eventuated and we sort of reflect and look back on it?
I think I'd do it again.
Okay.
Okay. For
Right.
sure. What really prompted me to take it on openly in public were two things. One, we had won something like, 27, 28 different awards for Tourism Malaysia. And that, by the way, Malaysia Truly Asia was my third time servicing Tourism Malaysia.
Right.
The first time was when I came in late '74, and I had them as an investor, in fact. I started an agency called PTM. It was Pernas, TDC. It wasn't a ministry yet. It was Tourism Development Corporation and Malaysia Airlines as investors and as clients. And I was the 25% manager, okay? And then again, when we did it was for the build-up of the hosting of the PATA conference. It was in the year of 1986, PATA 86. We pitched for the TDC account again. We're still TDC, we're not a ministry yet. And by this time it had gone to PTM Thompson. It was then a subsidiary of J. Walter Thompson and the partners, Pernas, TDC, MAS.
Right.
So the chances of our winning it was really kind of remote, because we were the outsider. Then my agency was known as AMC. It was the Malawa Corporation, my longest partner in Malaysia, 17 years. My chairman was then its founder, Yang Amat Mulia Tunku Abdullah, second son of the first king of Malaysia. And we pitched for it, and we won it. And it was on the strength of that song, To Know Malaysia is to Love Malaysia. Okay, so it was the second time. So Malaysia Truly Asia was really the third time that I won the Tourism Malaysia account. By that time it was the ministry. Well, when I was asked, really, whether I would consider sharing, if you will, the proceeds, the profits of the account, I said, no, definitely not. I haven't done so. I have never done so, and I will never do so. I would rather not have an account if I had to do that. But the thing that really bugged me was I had won 27, 28 awards. And we were asked to play along with a bride. And I said, I can't do that.
This was the sticking point, obviously.
Yeah, that was the sticking point. Okay. The point, the issue was, if you were the A student, and I was the B student, and the next guy was the C student, I can expect the C student wanting to bribe his way in, or the B student. But why should the A student want to play the game for? Or what for?
Sure.
Where's the rationale? What's the rationale behind that? So I thought that was the height of folly and the height of audacity. It was an insult. So that's when I said, okay, let's go. And it went public.
Very public.
Very public.
To the point that you were on every paper,
yes.
every radio station.
Yeah. And then adversary on the ministry side called me first a Indonesian investor, second time a American businessman, and the third time I was referred to as a Dutch trader. Okay, so that's when I decided enough is enough. Called the press conference and I said, well, I know who I was born from, where I was born,
right?
Who my parents were at least.
Okay.
But any description of those three phrases didn't fit. I said, and every other. At that time, I've been very lucky. I'd worked for several of Malaysia's administrations, and I said, even the prime ministers of this country didn't call me a Dutch trader.
Hi guys, a brief interlude during this fiery chat, just to bring your attention to an incredibly worthwhile cause in Hospices Malaysia, an institution that we work very closely with here at Go. You can find the contact information probably here below and the website, just to bring attention and awareness to a terrific organization and to see if you can help in any way you can. So thanks for listening.
I'll open it up.
But Austen, I mean, even as intelligent as you are, right? Mm-hmm. There's a great saying that you can't fight City Hall.
Yeah.
And especially in certain parts of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, did you inherently think that you could stand a chance to win the battle? I mean,
I did.
Or was it more of a point to prove, and I'm just going to sort of
both.
Share my side of the story?
Yeah, both. But I figured, what the hell? It's time for somebody to be a whistleblower.
Right.
So I figured, win or lose, I'm going to tell the truth.
Let me take it a step further,
Yeah.
Because you are the godfather of the industry, right? And whether it be advertising, I sort of stretch that, elongate it to media, PR.
Yeah.
Of course, we're always, I say, the poor cousins of the industry, but that's okay.
You are.
Yeah, thank you. But
you're doing your father proud, okay?
But when I say the poor cousins will get paid the least is what I meant. Okay. But do we think that is still around? And do you think it's rife? Is it as what it maybe once was?
I
love the analogy of the A student and the C student, right?
Yeah. No one's ever done that to me again.
Sure.
Okay, but I've heard it still goes on.
Yep.
Okay, it's just a little bit more subtle.
Okay.
It was not as overt as when I was hit with it. Okay, and I thought when I was hit with it, I couldn't believe it. Okay, that was, well, nowadays it's a little bit more subtle, but it's still there.
It's still there.
And it's not necessarily the head of the organization or the head of the ministry or whatever. It happens at even lower levels.
Okay.
And it's sad.
And is that, I mean, government aside, do you think it's weaned its way into the private sector as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has. Unfortunately.
Okay. Right.
Unfortunately. In fact, it's more, from what I hear, it's practiced more on the private sector side than it is on the government side.
That's a travesty, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's sad.
Okay. Austen, let me pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's fair to say that you've been about town. You've bought the t-shirt, as they say. You've founded, expanded, created a range of different entities, agencies, even across the region. I'm just going to list a few here. From Lander, Edelman, TQPR, Saatchi, you mentioned AMC, and now ISC. And that's
Yeah.
only a few of them, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we've got time to list the entire list of them. But I wanted to just ask, in your eyes, and it's always great to look back so you can look forward, in my humble belief, what do you think that the glaring sort of evolutions are in terms of our industry? And a lot of people talk about, yes, technology coming in,
Yeah.
the catch cry is AI, all these type of things. But have you seen something that's more, potentially more fundamental that's come through maybe in the last few years that a lot of people aren't talking about?
Yeah, I still think that, and I haven't quite mastered it. I have best left it to other people younger than me to do so. Taking the easy way out for myself. But it's always talk about AI. You know what? It'll do people out of jobs. You know that.
Sure.
Okay. I don't even know whether that's the right term. Artificial intelligence. You put it together, you think about it, it's fake intelligence. So it's a wrong term to have used, okay? But
You're saying there's a branding, advertising campaign in itself somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I believe that social media will be, unless something happens technically to television, its content, its delivery were to change, and I'm not a technical person, I don't know. I think social media is the way for the future, at least the foreseeable future for me in my lifetime, for what remains in my career. It takes many forms, but the amazing thing is that even now social media is dependent on something that, we call it a different name, influencer marketing. I mean, gosh, that's existed even before I started my career. Okay, so it's just new names for slightly more sophisticatedly applied technology. I'm not worried about the fact that advertising will still be needed. It will always be needed. Okay, we just saw the Olympics, and what happened? All right, it's a field day. All right. And
when you say field day, are you saying a debacle? Or
no, it was a field day for all kinds of promotions.
For brands to come in and...
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't see that changing in the near future. And as to what other technology might be applied to our industry, I can't tell you because I'm not in that. Okay. I as I said, I'm fortunate enough to be able to say to the youngsters, you guys, this is your area.
So Austen, leave tech out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, what about just the application of thinking?
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things I say to my guys is, well, it's very hard to keep up. Look, even at there are far more clever people in terms of IT, social media.
Yeah.
But do you not think that these are all vehicles? The application of thinking of coming up with a great idea or a
It's
campaign,
still there.
knowing that the vehicle can still, and obviously understanding its traits and how it can then mobilize.
Yeah.
That's still an art form.
Yes.
That's potential. Would you agree with that
Yes, I agree
school of
with that
thinking?
entirely. I mean, to me, the idea is what is the key to getting people to notice and willing to try your product or your service. If that idea brings it to them and brings them to the client that you have, that's what you're paid for. And the better the idea, the better you should get paid. And the longer you should be retained for getting them their return on investment and their market share. It's as simple as that.
I wish that's how it worked.
But that is what it is supposed to be.
You would like to think so.
Yeah.
But is it always the case? I mean,
well, maybe we haven't spoken enough. Maybe they just don't understand it yet. But I think more and more people go to marketing or management programs, whether it's seminars or whether it is temporary 2 or 3 month courses in the summer, or whether it's an MBA course. Okay, I believe that currently the greatest debacle that's facing an industry leader, that industry leader, from what I've read over the last week, is none other than Nike. And that's because they haven't come up with anything new.
Right.
Okay? And they haven't done anything that is new for the products that they do have. They were great before. All right? So that's it. I don't know what's going to happen to its agency. Has been a hell of an agency. But both the founders have died. And it's still the agency that is handling them.
How long has that been?
Well, listen,
roughly,
I can tell you, ballpark, it's been in the, oh gosh, I know the man, I know the founder, we went to the same school.
Sure.
He's 5 years younger than I am, Mr. Knight, Phil Knight, and Stanford.
Right.
And, oh gosh, it was in the 80s. Yeah, early 80s?
So 30 years, give or take?
Oh, more, 40.
40 years,
40.
okay.
Yeah, 40, 45 years.
Amazing.
Okay, so it's the same thing with Steve Jobs, right? And what he did, I mean, he died unfortunately at such a young age.
Right.
But he never had another agency except the one that we all know, that I was part of, TBWA. And they did things for their time the right way and differently.
Sure.
That's why TBWA's pillar was disruption. Differently, off the wall, okay? And that's what I mean. I mean, any agency that can come up with the idea, that can break through and go through the clutter, as they say, my old saying goes, and get people to actually try them and to believe in them, that's the agency that should be rewarded.
Agreed.
I mean, that's simple as that. So it's not the guys sitting on a desk up on a table there and saying that they're the board. Forget them.
Yeah.
Okay? They have nothing to talk about if they didn't have the product that was making them the money.
So we talk about the idea being crucial.
Yeah.
Or the concept or the strat.
Correct.
Let's take it one step before, because I'd just be really interested to hear your thoughts on this. The pitch process, and I think we were saying earlier, right? I think I probably had, well, you've done more pitches than I've had gin and tonics, right? Over the years. And that's a lot.
Well, I've had a lot of smokes too.
No, I was, talking about myself. For those out there, I mean, what do you think is the critical components to a success? I mean, people talk about chemistry, people talk about creative. Obviously, there's the cost element. Is it the ideation? What are the fundamentals, do you think, that's going to give you the best success rate of walking out of the room going, we got a chance here?
Okay. Besides the idea, besides the presentation, I think the key to all that, I've always felt this, is the conviction. I think it's the drive, it's the passion.
But okay, so for a company out there that's listening to this,
Yeah.
how do you bottle that? How do you bottle passion? For example,
Okay.
if you're working with a team,
Yeah.
is it potentially someone in the team that came up with the idea that arguably should present it because it came from their heart and their mind? They're gonna deliver it because it just feels raw and ready
Yeah.
and right.
Yeah.
I mean, is that
Yeah.
a particular? I mean, because it can be quite hard. I mean, there's a lot of good
It
actors.
is hard. It is.
out
Oh
there.
yeah, it's more than acting. You've got to have the substance to back it up. You've got to know the facts, and you've got to know your competition. I mean, you can't fight in an open space. I mean,
Sure.
you can't. You know exactly who you're going up against and what your competition has against you, against your potential client. Okay. But what I mean to say is, you've got to be convicted. I mean, convicted. You've got to be convinced of your way of doing it, and that what you're saying is that, well, I believe that you have to be convinced that what you're saying and what you're selling is the right way to compete against your competition. That's what I mean. And I've always said, if I had to choose between an MBA and a man who's just come off the battlefield, who's made decisions between life and death, I choose the latter. Thank you. Okay? Because I know his guts and glory are there.
He's going to die on the field, right? For
Yeah. And he'll do it. Okay? I mean, mind you, not every campaign is perfect. Not every campaign starts out to be perfect. And every campaign will have moments of faltering. But if you are so convinced and you are so committed to do or die, you're going to be able to twist it around to make it work. Okay?
Fair. What about theatrics, Austen? I mean, I think
theatrics will buy you some.
you've been in this particular domain, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is there a quick snippet of a theatric that you used at a pitch process? I remember in the Beatty days where they were pitching for Singapore Airlines, they literally built a cockpit that they were going to present in. I remember when we pitched for Kidzania, we trained 2 kids to come in and pitch for us. They became CEO, COO, and it was brilliant. I mean, it had an impact.
Of course.
Because you knew the audience.
Of course.
Does that play a role?
Of course. I can remember the second time we won Tourism Malaysia. I had an executive creative director, an associate executive creative director who unfortunately had a nervous breakdown while preparing for the pitch. And we pitched with no creatives. We pitched with one song. And the 2 gentlemen are still alive who can verify. One is Freddie Fernandez, who was he was head of the Malaysian Federation of Musicians. And the other one was Michael Verapan.
Right. Very famous
yes.
musician.
And you know what? We just rented the ballroom at the Raintree Club. And we had a piano. We had a candelabra. We had those 2 musicians, those 2 rascals. But I had the theatrics. Yeah. I came up with the lady who was, a co-winner of the, the Grammy Academy Award for a song for the Rocky movies, Eye of the Tiger. Her name was Carol Connors.
Right.
And we just put a big penyu in the middle of the ballroom. And we entertained the arrival of the panel from Tourism Malaysia. And they didn't see any creatives. I just put on a show. We just came out with a song, To Know Malaysia is to Love Malaysia. And it was based on Carol Connors' song, To know him is to love him. We kind of dragged it out and made it to know Malaysia is to love Malaysia. People smiling everywhere, showing you how much they care.
You got a pretty good voice, by the way.
Well, yeah. Sorry, it's a bit hoarse now.
No.
But in any case, you know what happened? They had the audacity to call me that night and said, what if we just buy the song from you?
Oh, wow.
They were still with PTM Thompson at that time.
Okay.
I said, You either get the whole darn thing or you don't get anything. Okay. Well, they had to buy me lock, stock, and barrel. Now that's theatrics, right? It's theatrics.
So it got you across the line at the end of the day, right?
It's the same thing with Malaysia Airlines. When we won the Malaysia Airlines account, the song was, it was something to do with the charm, the grace of Malaysian services, okay?
Sure.
Enchantment, Wherever You Fly was the name, was the pitch. And it was written by Neil Sedaka. And it was sung by Dionne Warwick.
Oh, wow.
And we presented it that way.
Okay.
So, same things, theatrics, okay? It counts, sure it counts, but it has to have some substance, some relevance, okay? But in order to put it at that time at the same level almost as Singapore Airlines was a tough job, okay? But Singapore Airlines never quite, well, they did use us. In fact, I had a whole series of celebrity tennis events for another client. And, but the very first one was for Singapore Airlines.
Well, that's the overlap between our families.
That's right. And that's how I met with your dad.
There you go.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it was when they launched the jumbo jet service to Los Angeles. And I can tell you exactly what it was. It was the year of 1988. I'm sorry, I take it all back. It was not 1980, something else. It was in 1978 when they launched the service to the United States. but they launched the jumbo jet 747 service in 1980.
Okay.
So it was with your dad.
That's right.
And
that's
he
right.
was then doing all the PR for Singapore Airlines.
Correct.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, gosh, this go a long way.
Let me, a couple more questions,
Yep.
guys. Let me bring it back to today.
Yeah.
So, we have your lovely daughter sitting with us as well.
Right?
I wanted to ask, because I've been through it, family is now a big part of the business, right?
Yeah,
And the Zecha name goes
Yeah.
right industry-wide in terms of hotels and all sorts of great things. Tell me about, and your son, who I've met,
Yeah.
how is it the dynamic of working with family in your eyes?
Oh, I should ask my grandfather. He did it with my father.
There you go. So
My
there's
father
legacy.
did it with his 5 sons, which I'm the youngest.
Right.
And it's good and bad. Sometimes they take their liberties with you because they know you've got to accept them anyway because they are your children. Okay.
Is that right, Ali?
Uh,
We're getting some odd looks
Yep.
from the audience.
Sometimes they do. Okay. But on the other hand, you know you've got something.
And there's trust,
And
right?
that's trust. That's
I mean,
trust.
I used to argue
It
with
is trust.
my father
Yeah,
like cats
exactly.
and dogs. At
Trust
times.
is the most important thing.
I would agree.
Trust, confidence, and the fact that they'll fight for you and they'll hold the fort and hold the line, okay, better than anyone else.
Sure.
And they should. I mean, more than anyone else that is not of your blood, okay? But I would think that, and I have a brother who's in the hotel business, and unfortunately he only has one son, okay? It has its problems, it has its difficulties, because, you know, not everyone in your family is made of the same experiences that you have been fortunate enough to have had to shape you into the person that you are.
Or one could say, not have the same affliction with or the passion for that industry.
Yeah.
As well,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Just
so when you have somebody, as I do with my daughter, you know, she does, okay? And I'm very fortunate in that respect, all right? I started, by the way, when I left AMC, when I was at AMC, I even had my 2 older boys working in the summers with us. And one with me in all celebrity tennis events, for instance. And when I started IIC, I even had one as a deputy general manager at that time, okay? It just didn't work out for whatever reason,
Sure.
okay? Either they didn't like it, or they didn't like having me take advantage of them as a father and as well as a boss, okay? Which I sometimes do, okay? I'm sure your dad did too, okay?
Is fair share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that's a trade-off, okay?
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it doesn't work out as well, right? I mean, as long as you try.
That's
and
right.
If it works out, it works out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And take us through the roller coaster ride of ISC, because I know you guys are on an upward trajectory. and
Yeah.
doing very well.
Well,
Things are looking good.
yeah.
Give us just a very quick synopsis, buddy, in terms
All
of
right. Okay.
how things are with you guys at
Well,
the moment.
the last 5 years have not been easy.
Sure.
It started with, of course, I've had 11 joint ventures, 11 times of starting an agency and being able to, fortunate enough, selling them to multinational who needed to come out to Southeast Asia. 10 of them worked out. The 11th one did not. And that was the most recent, okay? That really set us back. And that was even before COVID,
Right.
all right? And then COVID hit. And they were hit even more than I was hit because without a doubt, they couldn't come up with the funds necessary to even last the first year of COVID, okay? And it wasn't their fault because their parent company was a listed company and they were told not to spend any more money and because they were strapped, okay? And so we obviously had to come to terms and break up. That made it doubly worse. And then the third thing happened in the first year of COVID also, My chairman then, Tunku Imran, second son of my other late chairman, Tunku Abdullah, he had a stroke that basically really debilitating stroke. He lived for another 2 years, but he couldn't speak, couldn't eat. He was totally immobilized. So that didn't help. We had a couple of clients that just kind of walked out. One of them calling it a case of force majeure. It was. No one knew what COVID was.
Sure, tough time for a lot of people.
And two clients also were late in paying. One that didn't end up not paying. So, in a long and short of it was, we just had to string everything out. Suppliers, media. Fortunately, all of them have been very, very understanding.
Sure.
Okay. Staff were affected too. We had to reduce. We had to pay staff still today. Some staff that we had not been able to pay, but we'll pay for sure. Okay. We're not running away. All right. Yeah, things are turning around. It's becoming a lot brighter, and we are, I guess, to put it in a nutshell, being tenacious, being convinced that we can do it. We've been there a couple of other times. We'll do it again. Okay. They can write my epitaph. And they have written it several times. And so I don't mind that.
That's,
okay?
well,
So,
you'll outlive us all, I'm sure.
yeah. And so, well, you know, the only thing that can end it is if something ends my life, okay? But I think my daughter, she knows now exactly where it should go and how to make it go to that particular area, to that state anyway.
But can I just say, mate, it's rarefied that you're being so transparent about it, which is fantastic, because a lot of people will say there's been a hell of a lot of success over the years, right? And very few people have the confidence or the bravado to talk about the downtimes. And that's where you can learn, where other people learn, right? And how you sort of punch back and all that type of thing. And I don't think a lot of people, until they sort of get past the sort of crescendo of it, I think it's a real testament, man, that you would do that.
Thanks.
So bravo.
I mean, you know, I mean, the truth is the truth. If people think that, I've plowed in so much of my own savings, funds, and whatever else into just surviving.
But people do mask it, mate.
Yeah.
You know that. Because
I know.
Especially in this part of the world, it's a loss of face, and no one wants to admit when they're vulnerable or weak or anything like that at any given time.
Listen.
Even if they're successful and they pretend it didn't happen almost.
I know. But look at the people who must have lost so much in the Ukraine. People who may have lost so much in the Gaza. I mean, gee.
It's relative, right?
Yeah. We haven't even experienced that.
No doubt. But even here during COVID,
Yeah.
locally,
Okay.
Businesses
the whole
went-
world suffered from it.
agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some worse than others. Okay. Some have died from it, for God's sakes.
Through that.
Okay. So I'm fortunate. I haven't. All right. And I'm not in the Gaza, and I'm not in Ukraine. So, gosh, as they say, it's not what you don't have, what you don't have. It's what you do have that you have to be thankful about.
No doubt.
So that's it. Okay.
Last one, mate.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for your time as always.
Sure.
I do ask a lot of guests on this, just in terms of, again, being the advertising guru, and I don't say that lightly. A lot of people would agree with me. Over the years, and I'm sure you've seen more than most,
All right.
and you're not allowed to say
Yeah.
Tourism Malaysia.
Sure.
Is there one campaign that either you did or someone else did in the marketplace that really stands out where you went, wow, that's really clever. That's really, I wish I was part of that, or that's going to move the dial.
When you ask me what in my own lifetime I consider to be the one that I'm most proud about, Well, in 1982, and you can check this with another living person.
I was
His name was Tan Sri Vincent Tan. He was the first franchise holder here.
I believe that's Mr. Bajaya, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
Vijay.
Yes.
But he had just won the McDonald's franchise.
Okay.
And he had an office in Bangsar. And we were the agency selected on the basis of one thing. How the hell could we beat the rumors that were spread around town that McDonald's was not halal? Because after all, they deal in a product called hamburger. I mean, it's kind of nasty.
And
you know?
back then, I'm sure it would have been
Oh, yeah.
even harder
It was hard.
to push
Okay.
that agenda, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the king at that time was very fond of tennis. And it was the father of just the previous king. He was then the Sultan of Pahang. And I said, this is what we do. We'll bring in celebrities who are very popular on Malaysian TV and who play tennis, men and women, and we have a mixed tennis tournament.
With the whole racial dichotomy with Malays, Chinese,
That's
Indians,
right.
everything. Okay.
That's right. But they play only with known influencer peddling, marketing,
Right.
Malaysians of the opposite sex. And the king will be a participant also. Okay? He loves tennis. We have it at the Rangers Club, which is where we had it. And we sit at halftime, everyone has to have lunch. And we're going to serve them Big Macs. And we're just going to have one photographer with a telescopic lens, and we'll take a picture of the young Diputuan Agung biting into a Big Mac. And that will dispel the notion that burgers that was sold by McDonald's were haram. And that's how we broke it. Now they call it disruption. Big deal. Okay. As I said, a lot of things that we did are given all kinds of fancy names today. Okay. The fanciest of which I take exception with, and that's artificial intelligence, as I said. It's kind of a bad name. It's like fake intelligence, artificial intelligence, right?
That's it.
But aside from that, I said, okay, now they call it disruption. Gee whiz, that was the only way to crack. You know, when you run against a brick wall, you don't keep on running against it, right? You run around it.
Sure.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so yes, we helped launch McDonald's in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in Thailand, and Singapore, and Indonesia. And we won the McDonald's Marketing Achievement Award of 1982. And Vincent Tan can verify that. It was his franchise in Malaysia that won the McDonald's Marketing Achievement Award from the corporation against all the other agencies in the world.
Right.
And we were the 100th agency. It just so happened it was 100. The other 99 were, 49 was won, 50 was on. But we won against all of them. And I said, well, you know, when there is a problem, if you think hard enough, you can always overcome it because you've got that gray matter between the two ears and use it.
I don't mind that. That's probably ending on a happy meal statement.
Thanks.
Probably a good way to end it. But
Yeah.
Austen Zecha,
Well,
an
thank
absolute
you.
pleasure and privilege. Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.